Welcome to Cast 4. I'd like to give a shout out to my son, Maxwell. He's a sophomore in community college. I made this shirt for Max last year when he graduated high school as one of his gifts. So, Max, keep your grades up, and I'll be talking to you later. So, this time, let's see what I did here. I made a bullet point list. That way, it's easier for me to stay on topic. So, of course, I'm going to start with plugging my book. The answer are science, paranormal, and spirituality all connected. You can get the color version on Kindle, and you can get this paperback on Amazon.com. It's black and white, but it's still got pretty cool pictures in it. Might want to check it out. So, this episode is called The Book, and we're going to talk about people and paranormal today. So, the term the book is a term that I heard the first time when I was doing training in Hokkaido, Japan, with my Marine Corps artillery unit. Now, what had happened was we had been in Hokkaido for a couple weeks and morale wasn't that good. I don't know exactly what was going on, but the senior NCOs, like the staff NCOs, what that means they're, the sergeants and staff sergeants, they told all of the corporals to gather all the other NCOs and basically all the troops that weren't officers, as many as they could, and meet behind the chow hall in a little meeting place, kind of like a private meeting for enlisted men. I didn't know what was going on and didn't know anything about it, but there were about two or three NCOs, including one NCO was Corporal Pens from my unit, that spoke. And they were talking about, hey, look, we know you guys have heard about this thing called the book, and, rumors are going around. Some of them aren't true. And we just need to make sure that we don't continue talking about this, especially when there are high-ranking officers around. We need to keep this thing under wraps. And the whole time I'm saying, I'm looking around the room. I'm like, most of the people that I'm looking at have a shocked look on their face, like me. Like I have no idea what they're talking about. Some book, maybe there's some Marine, maybe there's some, some private or something somewhere writing a book about everything that's happening, like people getting hazed or bad stuff happening during training or people getting hurt. I don't know. But I can tell you that the whole time I was in the Marine Corps, I never saw nobody jotting down notes or writing nothing. So if somebody was writing down something in secret, I had no knowledge of it. So since Corporal Pens was in my unit, what I did was right after that meeting, I pulled him aside and like, Corporal Pens. Now if you look at the picture that I post first on this cast, it's a picture of me and Corporal Pens on a double date in Okinawa, Japan. The woman next to Corporal Pens is his future wife, at his time his fiance, and the girl that I'm standing next to is her best friend. Corporal Pen, we weren't really on a date. It was kind of like a double date. I had never met the girl. She barely spoke any English, and I was just there to kind of like make sure that Pens and his fiance had a good time, and that's her friend was there as well for that. So I never saw them again, but Corporal Pens, if you look at that picture, you can tell he seems like a pretty well put together brother, real cool cat, highly intelligent, not soft spoken, but he don't talk much. He only talks when there's something really important to say. And most of the time, since he's a Southern brother, I think he was from the deep South. I think he's from Alabama. Most of the time, he was like, he started his conversation with, "Hey, looky here, son. Looky here." Like he was telling you something that you had to know. So after that meeting, I pulled him aside. I'm like, "Yo, Corporal Pens, yo, what's going on? What's the book? What is that?" Yo, he totally blew me off. He changed the subject, wouldn't answer the question. Now, what do you gotta know about Corporal Pens? He was a straight up gangster, man. We were stationed. Our home station was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, the ghetto of the Marine Corps. You know what I'm saying? He was one of them guys that, saying he knew the streets and he stayed, in contact with everybody on the street. So if you was a Marine that, you needed something done, you needed help with something, that's the guy you go to and he take care of it. You know what I'm saying? You got a problem with your girlfriend, you got a problem with another Marine, he's like an incognito OG gangster, you know what I'm saying? So he was one of my boys, one of the guys we used to hang out with when we went out on the weekends. So I never found out what they were talking about, what the book was, but I sometimes wonder, especially when I started doing my paranormal research about 12, 13 years ago when I first started doing that research, I found out that some people consider the book of life. Now, what that is basically it's a similar way of saying like what God or the Holy Spirit is. Basically, the book is everything in recorded history, everything that has happened in this universe, everything in reality is written down in the book of time. And that's basically what the book of life is. It's just basically every thought, every action, every subatomic particle, you know what I'm saying? Every supernova, every world that's created, every life that's created, every soul, everything. Everything that you can think of in reality, in existence, is recorded somewhere. So that is kind of what I come to understand, what many people believe. I mean, at least in the spiritual community, what they believe the book is. So, speaking of books, make sure I plug my book, The Answer, Our Science, the Paranormal, and Spirituality All Connected. You can get the color version of this book on Amazon through eKindle, or you can get the paperback like this one, which has a lot of pretty pictures in it, although they are all black and white in the book. If you want to see the color pictures, you got to go to eKindle. So, next topic. Since we're talking about books, right? This is the people and paranormal side of the Triple P network. I'm gonna tell you something about myself as a person. When I was in high school, one of my dreams was to write and publish a science fiction novel. So by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I had started reading the original Star Wars book that George Lucas had wrote after he made the movie. Um, and I started getting ideas from that book, from the Star Wars movies, from Star Trek movies. They inspired me to come up with this idea of a book called Mind Melt. Mind Melt, in this book that I started writing, I only got to like the third chapter writing it because, as it goes as a young man, saying a young adult in high school, you get distracted. Things happen and you start getting into other things and you forget that you're writing a book. But anyways, so the main storyline of Mind Melt, my idea was there's this man, right? Young 25 something year old man or whatever. Um, he at the early age when he was a kid, he realized that he had gifts, that he could see things that other people couldn't see. And by the time he got into his mid 20s, he developed this ability to actually transport himself just by the power of thought, transport himself into the future or into the past. Like he could just think in his mind of a date, like pick a date, like October 13th, 2122. You know what I'm saying? And then he could physically transport himself, like he would go into a trance, uh, physically transport himself into the future or into a date in the past, anywhere in time, and then do actions like walk around, talk to people, lead a life for as long as he wants in that time frame from that date on, moving forward like we normally do progression as we are now in this timeline. but he's in another timeline. Now, meanwhile, back in his original timeline, before he started the mind melt jump, nobody knows what's going on because everything's happening in a split millisecond. So, literally, what happens is once he's finished doing whatever he wants to do in that other timeline, and he says, okay, it's time for me to go back to my original timeline, he jumps back into the exact moment that he first left from. So it doesn't matter. He could be in a mid conversation, and the only thing that the people in his original timeline, like if they're around him, if they got their eyes on him right there in that moment, the only thing they're going to see is a brief moment of him pausing for like a second, like he'll be talking and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden he'll just look at you like, and then he'll go back to talking. In that brief half second or whatever, he could have experienced a whole nother lifetime, or he could have just experienced like jumping, like he got some information, like what I'm saying, like some archaeologist discovers an ancient shipwreck, and he knows the timeline of what port that ship was in before it wrecked. So he jumps to the day before that ship leaves, goes in that ship and steals all the gold, puts it, you know what I'm saying, in buries it in a grave or a lockbox somewhere. So then hundreds of years later, he can jump back into his person now and say, hey, look, this is a nice conversation, but I got to go. And then go to that place to where he stashed it. Hopefully it's still there. And now he's a rich man. So that's one example of what the story I was writing about. The fiction, that was the fiction story. That was the only fiction story idea that I actually had. I have some other ones, but I prefer now nonfiction. So that leads me to my next book topic. So my next book topic is da 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 da. I'm actually in the process of writing a second book. Uh, Over the last few months, starting this year, actually I think it was last year, I realized to myself, because when I started putting my book out, my friends would tell me, hey, look, your book looks really cool. You need to write another one. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I just, I already wrote a book. I already accomplished one of my childhood dreams in writing a book. But then I said, I don't have any ideas. But eventually, people, my friends, telling me occasionally, hey, look, write another book. I came up with this idea. My personal life, looking back at it, just like many of you, I've had paranormal experiences. And, you know, what I'm thinking about is why don't I just do an autobiography on my paranormal experiences? And then I thought to myself, well, I'm not just the only interesting person I know. I should incorporate my whole life story, including paranormal experiences that I've experienced with other people jointly, and stories that they've told me that I know are truthful that I believe. So that's what I'm doing. I'm starting from my birth, and I'm starting the story of my childhood, my family, how I grew up, and I'm not getting into like all the boring stuff. I'm only basically gonna go event to I'm gonna try to go from paranormal event to paranormal event to paranormal story that people told me to paranormal story. So those of you out there who are friends, family, or acquaintances, and we know each other, we already have contact information exchanged between each other, send me a message, give me a call. If you want to be incorporated in my second book, send me a message, get a hold of me, let me know what stories you want me to put in my book about you. And it will all be anonymous because even my name is going to be anonymous in this book. I'm going to go under a different name, this book that I'm writing about myself, but I will publish it. I will let people know that it's an autobiography, but it will remain anonymous. That way, whatever stories that people tell me and whatever stories I talk about that may involve things that some people don't really want everybody knowing what happened to them, nobody's going to really know who it really actually was because I'm going to change your name to an anonymous one. So if you want to be in if you like my writing and you want to be in my book, shoot me a message, get a hold of me, and we'll either do it, we'll either message each other or we'll go for a cup of coffee and you can tell me your story. I'll take notes and I'll put it in the book. but don't expect for me to publish this book like in the next month or so. It's probably going to take me a while to go through the progression of telling my story and everybody else's story. So this is going to be a work in progress. But I promise you, as long as I'm on this earth, I'm going to do my best to try to publish it. Good thing I wrote down bullet points for this cast. All right, so looks like I've covered all of my bullet points. And guess what? This cast is over. Yo, peace, love, and hair grease. Love y'all. Yo, keep paying attention to the channel. Subscribe, like, you know what I'm saying? Hook a brother up. Go to Amazon.com, buy the book. You ain't going to be disappointed, man. And you especially ain't going to be disappointed when you go to my short, right, on this channel. Go to my shorts. Look at that video that I posted. And then go to your phone, freaking Groom Lake, Nevada, Google Maps, hit the satellite option, and then check out the satellite footage, the supposed up-to-date satellite footage on Google Maps, and compare that to the video I posted of my short. All right. So, yo, one love, man. Till next time, stay up.